physicist Dr. Milo Grampton, in the midst of enjoying a dubiously brewed cup of coffee, stumbled upon a peculiar digital book within the dusty digital archives of the Galactic Commons Library, a repository known for its vastness yet lack of helpful information. The book's title, The Definitive Guide to Surviving Deathworlds, Volume 9, gave him pause. He pondered aloud, since when is that a genre? A blend of scientific curiosity and the unsettling feeling of being categorized as something potentially fatal prompted him to open the table of contents. The list presented a bizarre collection of planets, ranging from Grav X4, where the gravitational pull could crush most life forms, to Eusalia Prime, a world so humid it made soup seem solid. However, it was Chapter 37 that truly caught his attention, almost causing him to choke on his coffee. The chapter, titled Earth, a Class 13 Deathworld, made Milo sputter. "Oh, come on," he exclaimed, catching the eye of his colleague, Ethel Frobisher, a biologist currently occupied with the complex task of reclassifying their office fern as a sentient life form. "What's the issue now, Milo?" she inquired, adjusting her spectacles with the weary air of someone perpetually braced for the unexpected. Milo pointed at the holographic display. "They've listed Earth as a Class 13 Deathworld. That's like being ranked a 13 on a scale where 10 is already a guaranteed gruesome demise." Ethel peered closer, her expression shifting as she read the subheading, Survival on Earth, a comprehensive guide to not being instantly annihilated. Together, they scanned the chapter, their initial bewilderment morphing into amusement, then escalating to full-blown laughter. Each sentence read as if penned by someone whose fleeting 5-minute visit to Earth had left them profoundly and hilariously traumatized. The chapter, brimming with outlandish claims, described squirrels as highly intelligent predatory rodents known for their psychological warfare tactics. Ethel snorted with amusement at the description, adding, "And apparently, rain is a corrosive liquid that falls without warning, often accompanied by atmospheric electrical discharges designed to obliterate all life." By the time they got to the part about human eating habits, both Milo and Ethel were in stitches, rolling on the floor with laughter. The guide claimed that humans regularly ingest a toxic stimulant called caffeine, despite its well-documented effects of inducing rapid heartbeat, anxiety, and a general sense of existential dread. They realized the book wasn't simply inaccurate, it was spectacularly, hilariously wrong. Within hours, digital copies of the survival guide had proliferated across Earth's networks, spreading like wildfire. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #DeathworldSurvivor and #KillerSquirrelsAreal. Late-night comedians gleefully recited excerpts from the guide to roaring audiences, while YouTubers created dramatic reenactments of the chapter's most absurd pronouncements, complete with oversized squirrel costumes and ominous thunder sound effects. Not everyone, however, found the situation amusing. Deep within the sterile confines of the Earth Alliance Interstellar Liaison Office, Ambassador Randolph Klim paced nervously, rereading the guide for what felt like the 100th time. "This," he declared, his voice reaching a pitch typically reserved for adolescents explaining missed deadlines, "is a catastrophe. If the galaxy believes we inhabit some sort of interstellar hellscape, it will undermine years of diplomatic efforts." Across the table, cultural anthropologist Meryl Nint presented a counter-argument. On the contrary, she countered, tapping her pen against the section titled Humans, Madness Incarnate, "This could be advantageous. They depicted us as too perilous to provoke. Look at this passage, humans thrive on chaos, conquer death, and weaponize their own suffering. It's practically a warning label." Their debate was cut short by a holographic alert, incoming galactic message from Coil Press. The alien publishing house, it seemed, had caught wind of the uproar and had decided to weigh in. The official statement from Coil Press began with the sort of inflated self-importance only a galactic publisher could muster. To the inhabitants of Earth, a Class 13 Deathworld, as validated by extensive data and several traumatized interns, it read. "We acknowledge your responses to our recent publication. However, we stand by our research. Any discrepancies are entirely attributable to the unique, and frankly baffling, nature of your planet." If they had ended the statement there, the situation might have calmed down. But then came the final blow. "We encourage you to regard our manual not as criticism, but as a survival guide for future travelers brave enough to set foot on your cursed, squirrel-infested soil." For Earth's population, this was akin to adding fuel to a fire already raging with caffeine-induced indignation and a healthy dose of spite. The global response was a symphony of sarcasm, outrage, and outright mockery. The phrase, "cursed soil," began trending worldwide, alongside pictures of squirrels enjoying French fries, captioned with warnings like, "Beware their insidious plot." Meanwhile, coffee companies seized the opportunity, launching marketing campaigns declaring themselves purveyors of humanity's preferred poison. One particularly audacious barista, named Theo, even created a new concoction called the Deathworld brew, consisting primarily of espresso and served with a disclaimer absolving the cafe of any responsibility. Back in his apartment, Milo Grampton watched the unfolding online pandemonium, clutching his sides from laughter. "They've transformed us into a cosmic meme," he exclaimed to Ethel, who was busy sharing squirrel memes with her academic colleagues. "Honestly," Ethel replied between chuckles, "I'm rather proud. If we're going to be branded a Deathworld, we might as well embrace it." But not everyone shared their amusement. In a nondescript office tower in Geneva, Earth Alliance's top diplomats were convening an emergency meeting. Their debate was interrupted by a holographic alert flashing incoming galactic message from Coil Press. The alien publishing house, seemingly aware of the escalating online commotion, felt compelled to insert themselves into the narrative. Their official statement opened with the sort of grandiose self-importance characteristic of a galactic publishing empire. To the inhabitants of Earth, it began, a Class 13 death world, as verified by extensive research and the psychological trauma of several interns. The statement acknowledged Earth's reaction to the guide, yet stood firm in its assertions. Any inaccuracies, they claimed, were solely due to Earth's unique, and frankly bewildering, nature. Had they ended it there, the situation might have de-escalated. However, they delivered a final, inflammatory jab. "We suggest you view our manual not as a critique, but as a helpful tool for any future explorers brave enough to venture onto your cursed, squirrel-infested planet." This was like adding fuel to an already raging inferno, stoked by caffeine-fueled resentment and a healthy dose of global defiance. Cursed soil quickly became a trending topic across Earth's social media platforms, appearing alongside images of squirrels nonchalantly enjoying French fries, accompanied by cautionary captions like, "Do not underestimate their cunning." Meanwhile, coffee companies capitalized on the situation, launching advertising campaigns that proudly proclaimed them purveyors of humanity's preferred toxin. One particularly entrepreneurial barista, a fellow named Theo, even concocted a new beverage dubbed the Deathworld brew, a potent mix consisting mostly of espresso, served with a legally dubious disclaimer absolving the cafe of any and all liability. Back at his apartment, Milo Grampton watched the ensuing online pandemonium, clutching his sides with laughter. "They've turned us into a galaxy-wide meme," he exclaimed to Ethel, who was busy disseminating squirrel-related internet humor among her colleagues in academia. To be honest, Ethel replied between chuckles, "I'm quite proud. If we're going to be designated a Deathworld, we might as well embrace the label." However, the levity wasn't universally shared. In an unremarkable office building in Geneva, the Earth Alliance's highest-ranking diplomats were convening for an emergency strategy session. The holographic display in the meeting room flickered, displaying the words "Crisis Management, Deathworld Image Problem." Ambassador Randolph Klim, on his third cup of tea, a consequence of the vending machine's coffee shortage, gestured towards a particularly alarming passage about Earth's oceans. "This," he declared, "is getting completely out of hand. The guide claims our water itself tries to drown everything in it and is teeming with creatures possessing an excessive number of teeth. It makes us sound like we live in a planetary-scale horror film." Meryl Nint cut him off mid-sentence. "Randolph," she said firmly, "if you continue to panic, you'll only validate their assessment. Calm down. I've been analyzing the extraterrestrial responses, and they're utterly fascinated. Look at this." She projected a galactic commons forum teeming with comments from various alien species. One read, "Is it true humans consume bread?" Another inquired, "How do they even manage to exist on a planet with lightning spiders and corrosive rainfall?" "I've just purchased the guide, I absolutely must learn more." Meryl smiled. "They don't find us terrifying, they find us legendary. If we handle this strategically, we can turn this into galactic admiration, or at the very least, a healthy dose of apprehension, which is almost as effective. Randolph, still skeptical, frowned. And just how do you propose we accomplish that? Simple, Merrill replied, her eyes gleaming with a mischievous spark. We allow them to believe they're correct. We let them continue to think Earth is an unpredictable, terrifying gauntlet of peril. But, she added, we subtly introduce just enough truth to maintain a semblance of believability. It's like adding spices to a soup, or in this case, crafting a public relations strategy involving potentially dangerous squirrels. By the meeting's conclusion, a new strategy was in motion. The Earth Alliance released its own statement, carefully balancing mockery with a hint of menace. While we appreciate Coil Press's endeavor to document our unique environment, it read, we must clarify that survival on Earth is not for the timid. Visitors should be prepared for extreme conditions, including high-velocity precipitation, rapidly expanding vegetation, and an ecosystem of apex predators ranging from wolves to, yes, squirrels. Within hours, the galaxy was buzzing with speculation about Earth's perils. Travel blogs offered wild conjectures, and alien adventurers flocked to forums, posting questions like, is it true that Earth's trees explode? To which humans playfully responded, only on Tuesdays. Amid the escalating hysteria, Coil Press announced they would be returning to Earth for further research. Milo and Ethel, observing the announcement, exchanged a knowing glance. This, Milo said, a blend of amusement and apprehension in his voice, is going to be epic. Coil Press's return to Earth was met with two very different responses. Humans, delighted by the prospect of further alien misunderstanding, metaphorically prepared their popcorn. The Quillian research team, on the other hand, prepared a veritable arsenal of advanced survival equipment, including environment-resistant exosuits, multi-species communication devices, and a universal squirrel deterrent that bore a striking resemblance to a polished tin can. Leading the expedition was Frankel Vivi, the apprehensive editor-in-chief of Coil Press, whose enthusiasm for the mission was about as genuine as the claim of Earth squirrels being predatory. Frankel, however, had his marching orders, we owe it to the galaxy, his superiors had insisted, to verify that Earth is every bit the nightmarish hellscape we portrayed it to be. And so, with a team of 5 researchers and a cargo hold brimming with an excessive amount of precautionary supplies, Frankel's ship, the inquisitive platypus, descended towards Earth. As the landing struts made contact with the ground, the crew braced themselves for an immediate onslaught of Earth's infamous horrors. Instead, they were met with the peaceful chirping of birds and a deer calmly nibbling on some foliage. The silence is ominous, Zorth Pliv, a nervous geologist whose usual habitat was a rock lab far removed from anything remotely organic, declared. No, Frankel muttered, adjusting his multi-lensed ocular device. The silence is suspicious. It means they're plotting. The crew disembarked cautiously, their translation devices whirring as they analyzed Earth's atmosphere. To their astonishment, the air didn't instantly attempt to melt their respiratory systems. It's breathable, NZX, the xenobiologist, stated, with a mixture of relief and disappointment. The toxins are invisible, Zorth insisted, meticulously applying another layer of hyperalloy sealant to his exosuit. Their initial encounter with Earth's supposed predatory wildlife occurred moments later, when a bushy-tailed squirrel dashed out from behind a tree. Deploy the deterrent. Frankel barked. Zorth fumbled with the tin can, shaking it wildly. The squirrel paused, tilting its head inquisitively, before scampering up the tree. The crew stared after it, dumbfounded. That, Frankel declared, was clearly a reconnaissance mission. They're studying us. Meanwhile, in the nearby town of Springwood, news of the alien visitors had spread. At the local diner, Theo, the barista, now a minor local celebrity due to his Deathworld brew, grinned as he watched a live stream from one of the aliens' hovering observation drones. They think squirrels are spies, he chuckled, handing a cup of coffee to a bemused Ethel. Better than last week's theory, Ethel replied. Did you see the part where they thought rainstorms were targeted attacks? Theo laughed. I hope they stay long enough to experience a thunderstorm. That'll really convince them. Back in the forest, the aliens had moved on to cataloguing the hostile flora. This involved NZX solemnly examining a daisy while Frankel scribbled notes. Specimen exhibits deceptive coloration. Likely lures prey into a false sense of security. Their confusion deepened when they encountered a patch of poison ivy. Aha! Zorth exclaimed, scanning it with a handheld device. A plant designed to inflict pain through chemical warfare. As they painstakingly avoided touching the ivy, they failed to notice the actual threat, a hive of bees nestled in a nearby tree. One irritated bee buzzed out, landing on Frankel's shoulder. "Don't move," NZX hissed. "It's armed." "What do I do?" Frankel whispered, perspiration trickling down his temples. "Remain calm," Zorth suggested, just as Frankel swatted at the bee in a panic. The ensuing moments were a blur of high-pitched shrieks, frantic running, and Zorth tumbling into a nearby creek. The humans watching the live stream erupted in laughter. By now, the aliens' antics had gone viral, and millions of Earthlings were glued to their screens. "This is better than reality TV," Ethel commented, watching Frankel flail in the water, yelling something about venomous aquatic currents. The aliens retreated to their ship that evening, bruised but undeterred. "We're not leaving until we document definitive proof of Earth's lethality," Frankel declared, wincing as NZX applied a soothing balm to his bee sting. Outside, a pair of squirrels chattered in the trees, as if sharing a joke only they understood. The following morning, Frankel was awakened by Zorth's panicked cries. "Emergency! The ship's external sensors have been compromised." "Compromised?" Frankel groaned, rubbing his eyes. "Define compromised." "They've been chewed through," Zorth shrieked, displaying the camera feed of the ship's exterior. There, in grainy black and white, was the culprit, a squirrel gnawing with apparent relish on what was supposedly indestructible alloy casing. "This is it," Frankel muttered grimly. "The opening salvo. They've declared war." The team suited up and emerged cautiously from the ship. Frankel carried a clipboard, Zorth brandished a sonic dissuader that looked suspiciously like a leaf blower, and NZX clutched a data pad loaded with Earth's alarming wildlife statistics. They soon discovered that the squirrel was only the beginning of their troubles. Overnight, a group of raccoons had transformed their supply crate into a makeshift buffet, munching on ration packs with an air of nonchalant indifference that only Earth creatures seemed to possess. "Predatory scavengers," NZX noted, his voice trembling. "Highly adaptive. Opposable thumbs. They're practically sentient. Don't just stand there." Frankel shouted, gesturing wildly at Zorth. "Use the dissuader." Zorth activated the sonic device, which emitted a weak puff of air that barely disturbed a nearby bush. The raccoons, unimpressed, stared at the aliens for a moment before resuming their meal. One even burped. "This planet is mocking us," Frankel said, his voice flat. Back in Springwood, the humans were now completely captivated by the aliens' misadventures. Theo had set up a projector in the diner, and locals gathered daily to watch the increasingly bizarre footage. When the raccoon incident aired, the room erupted in laughter. "Honestly, they're not wrong about raccoons," Ethel admitted between giggles. "You think they'll survive long enough to realize we're not all homicidal maniacs?" Theo asked. "Doubt it," a patron replied. "At this rate, they'll be taken out by a goose." As if summoned by cosmic irony, the aliens soon encountered a flock of geese near a peaceful pond. Frankel, still smarting from the raccoon debacle, approached cautiously. "Specimens appear aquatic," he whispered to NZX, "but likely possess hidden defenses." Moments later, one of the geese honked loudly, spread its wings, and charged. The sight of 5 highly advanced extraterrestrial researchers fleeing from a single irate bird would later become the most replayed clip on Earth streaming platforms. Back aboard the inquisitive platypus, Frankel paced furiously. "This planet is insane," he declared. "We've been outsmarted by rodents, mocked by scavengers, and," he paused, massaging his temples, "humiliated by waterfowl." NZX, however, was staring intently at his data pad. "Actually, sir," he said hesitantly, "Earth's life forms are remarkable. Their resilience, adaptability, and resourcefulness are unparalleled." Even their humans, well, especially their humans, have transformed this hostile environment into a thriving civilization. Thriving? Zorth exclaimed. They voluntarily drink a toxic liquid daily. Yes, NZX replied, his voice tinged with awe. But they do so knowing it's toxic. They face danger, chaos, and unpredictability every day, and they laugh at it. That's not insanity, that's... He hesitated, searching for the right word. That's ingenuity.